Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming and joining me to talk about architecture. Nothing really gives me more joy than talking about enterprise architecture. So let's take a moment to thank our architects and the profession of architecture. I don't think the enterprise architects give enough credit for the work we do. So let's take a moment, especially in today's day and age of uncertainty, unpredictability, be it a supply chain crisis, healthcare crisis, or economic crisis, everything that is going on. The role of enterprise architects have never been this critical to really enable our companies. So with that, my name is Geeta Pyne. I am Chief Enterprise Architect for Intuit, and Intuit is a technology company. We are the makers of software like called TurboTax, QuickBooks, Mint, Credit Karma, MailChimp. So we make software for consumer and small businesses. What I'm going to do in the next 25 minutes is talk about Intuit's mission and strategy so we understand what's the purpose of Intuit, how we enable enterprise architecture to drive the transformation for Intuit. And more importantly, what I'm going to talk today is how enterprise architecture drives Intuit to stay competitive, innovate, grow, and result in a really high-performing organization. So that's going to be the theme of today. So let me start with Intuit. So Intuit's mission is powering prosperity around the world. Love this mission of that we every day do the work to enable and empower prosperity powering around the world. We are about 14,000 plus employees, 20 offices in 9 countries, and $10 billion revenue. With the mission of when we say powering prosperity around the world, so let's understand what does it mean to be powering prosperity around the world. So what capabilities do our customers need to prosper? As you can imagine, most likely these capabilities are something to do with their finance management because we are a fintech company. So whether it is accounting, whether it is payroll, whether it is payments, whether it is doing invoicing and so on. So that's what our capabilities our customers need. So let's look at what do we need in order to enable our customers and partners. These are like your identity, money movement, monetization, workflow, and so on. Then thirdly, what does our engineers and our employees need in order to enable this ecosystem of customers and partners? So these are like your data, security, tools, and many other capabilities. So our customers need capabilities to do their finance management. We need capabilities to enable customers and partners, as well as our engineers need capabilities to enable this ecosystem. So that brings us to, with the Intuit mission, what does it translate into our Intuit strategy? Intuit strategy, if we think about the capabilities that we talked about with our customers, partners, and we need our employees and engineers, our strategy is how do we deliver those capabilities in the form of an AI-driven expert platform. So Intuit strategy of enabling our customers and partners all those capabilities via AI-driven expert platforms so that they can have complete confidence with us, they can manage their finance, and they can do their job more efficiently. This strategy is complemented with our 5 big bets that we talk about. So the business strategy, Intuit strategy, complemented with the 5 big bets, brings this strategy to fruition with the form of AI-driven expert platform. So let's take a quick look at the scale of business we are talking about. So when we're doing taxes, this is last year's number, about 56 million tax filers. So we're talking about 56 million of people doing taxes, maybe 2 million on the very last day of doing taxes. we have 121 million of Credit Karma members. So when we talk about this platform, the AI-driven platform, it is important to think about the scale. It is important to think about the data, the volume it goes through, and the trust and it needs to have. So architecture is so important, how we think about building these capabilities and the platform that enables this ecosystem of our customers and partners. So once we understand the mission and the strategy, that drives our technology strategy. And this technology strategy is so this technology strategy is driven by, this is a picture probably you all see, right? This is we have our big bets, we have our 6-year goals, we have our big strategy and the big bets that translate into our tech strategy. What we do every year is we relook at market conditions, we look at the signals that drives our strategy, that drives our technology strategy, and we write down what needs to shift, what new things we need to do, or what do we need to stop doing so that we can still align with the big business strategy and the goals and the North Star we have for the company. This technology strategy is represented by what we call a capability map. So in Intuit's terminology, the Intuit capability map is basically what we call that this is a city map. And what does this really mean? So when we talk about a capability map, it represents all of the capabilities that we just talked in the introduction about customers, partners, and employees need. So all these capabilities are represented. So this is our enterprise architecture framework to manage entire portfolio in the lens of capability. And this framework ensures that these capabilities are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, so that we have one way of delivering the outcome, so that we have consistency in the outcome that we produce via the capabilities. And this is our common architecture. Why this is important is the purpose of this map helps us to organize the entire company in the way we organize these capabilities. So when we have this map, created capability map, organized by domains, and within those domains, the sub-capabilities, we also align our company and the organization, the engineering teams, product management, all to deliver on those capabilities. So in this company, enterprise architecture represented by that capability map actually also shapes the organization to drive efficiency, to drive, deliver with speed, to innovate. So this is one thing to be really proud about, is architecture is not disjoint from the functioning of the company. Architecture is embedded in the DNA and how we organize and how we operate. What does that give us? It gives extreme ownership and accountability, because we have ownership of those capabilities and the domain with product management, architects, engineering, delivery leaders. And this also helps us to now that we have a clarity on what capabilities represent the platform, who is accountable for producing the capabilities now, and we enable that discovery of this capability. So now you can find your capability that you might be able to reuse, or also you might create some capabilities that somebody else will consume and get the leverage of the capabilities. And these are the capabilities that we use to architect and deliver new solutions. So just summarizing, so this is our AI-driven expert platform that clarifies our role and the core and usable capabilities. It drives speed. It enables engineers to contribute. And we align and organize our teams around this capability map. So this is our framework. This is what the linchpin of everything we do. So how does it just, again, reflecting back, with all these things coming together, we have the strategy, we have the capability map. The capability map delivers the how for the business, that how we are going to deliver. And it also informs the what we need in the technology portfolio. So this is really the enterprise architecture is at the center and the glue and the fabric of connecting the strategy with the outcome that we need to deliver. So let's think about, now that we understand how we think about enterprise architecture at Intuit, let's think a little bit more about the role we play. We in the company is all about, since our mission is about AI-driven mission platform, so our team is actually a part of Intuit's platform acceleration group. So within that group, one of our pillars is architecture and strategy, and our mission is to really create this foundation, innovation, and mindset so that every technologist is empowered to deliver with speed, and not just with speed, but quality. And we consider ourselves both as an enabler as well as practitioner. So with that being said, this is our architecture framework. Enterprise architecture framework, as in every company, should enable, like, how do you have your current state, you know what your North strategy is, the North goals are, and how do you arrive to the target state. So we as an architecture team, what we do is we define those framework and the vectors that can help understanding the current state to the future state, so that we can create the roadmap, enable the organization to create the roadmap. We don't create everything within the EA team, but we define those variables and the vectors and the constructs and the attributions of this current state, how you represent current state. That means you have capabilities. The capabilities can be that it is a code or a context. You can have your current state maturity based on the business goal, where you need to go, future state maturity. So these are the things that we define, and that informs going from the current state to the target state with the roadmap and the bite-sized chunks that moves over. Ultimately, what it comes out of the pipe is your Intuit platform in the target state. So if now let's see, that current state to the future state and the architecture framework. So now let's unpack that. What are the abilities or capabilities we offer? So if we look at our architecture store, there are multiple capabilities, starting from the principal standards to your capability management, to your design framework, and so on. But the key important thing, in my opinion, is enterprise architecture enables decisions. Enterprise architectures enables the organization to make decisions, provides options and choices and guidelines on when to use what. So let's double click a little bit about how we organize our capabilities. This is today's state. We talk about the capabilities we offer: capability management, value stream management, solution architecture, and architecture governance. So you'll see enterprise architecture itself is organized and as a capability-centric organization, and each capability talk has a customer benefit. And so what does it do to enable platform acceleration? Because that's our mission. So making sure that anything we do, we don't do in vacuum, there is a benefit associated for the customer, and connect that back to the platform acceleration. So key things, as we already talked about, that when we talk about capability, two things, I think a couple of things are very critical, right? We think about maturity is a good dimension. So we have defined a maturity model, extended industries CMM model, or intuitizing it, how you define functional versus technical. And then also providing a heat map. How do you get this dashboard? How do you get enough bits on a paper to see where you are bleeding or where you are doing really well, so that you can get a line of sight on where to focus, and also the value stream management. So these are the couple of things around the capability management, coupled with our technology selection criteria of core context and principles, inform the architects and the leaders is how to make decisions around how you are going to mature your capabilities, whether are you going to build, are you going to buy or acquire. So once you have the capabilities and you understand the maturity and how you groom, next thing is, when you talk about a platform, it is a lot of capabilities, not just fine-grained capabilities there. They need to work together. They need to have coherent solution. So we have this capability we introduced called solution architecture, within which the main, if we think about solution architecture, right? I like to think of building things this as Lego blocks, so that we can put those Lego blocks together. We as an architect don't care so much about what goes inside the box, but we do care about the interfaces. So we do care about interface strategy, the API strategy, whether you should be doing REST, whether GraphQL, how should you think about communication, messaging, eventing. So those standards and frameworks that we care about. And there also, we do not define everything from the central architecture team, but we have domain architects embedded in other teams based on the use cases, who are closer to the use cases, drive there. But what we give is the construct so that you can understand those designs, you can understand the frameworks, you can derive decisions around like how to use this, when to use that. So this is like solution architecture that starts then enables. So with design framework patterns, deliver what we call like a well-architected solution. So what does Intuit well-architected mean? So that we know these things will, when you throw them in the platform, they will all work together in concert. Big part of scaling at an organization, any organization, especially at a size like Intuit, and move fast, is democratizing. So hence the importance of having more frameworks, patterns, and thinking of architecture as code. And I'll get to it in a second, how we capture those designs and decisions into GitHub, right? So that everything is treated as a code for the engineering community. Talking about community, not just framework and tooling is important. We believe a lot is to make things stick and work, you need the community to be around. And this community is across Intuit, between central architecture team to the BU architects to the Scrum teams. We create these communities who can all contribute to, participate, and do self-assessment with the framework and tooling that we develop. And everybody has a chance to, almost like you think about it, is open sourcing, like insourcing within the Intuit construct. Now, talking about capabilities and solution architect design patterns. Now, how do we drive these things? I talked about the importance of the decision framework, and democratizing that again. So how we democratize decision framework or decisioning through a framework is through scope and the DACI. So we have this capability map, and based on the capability leveling corresponding, there is a scope and the DACI defined, so that not every decision needs an approval of the chief architect. Based on the scope, you can have the corresponding role DACI is defined who can approve. So appropriate workflow will be triggered based on the scope and DACI. And these decisions also, we go through the GitHub, and we have this workflow for when you submit a request, whether it goes through in progress, and like through automation, when things are moving and the decision is getting approved. And we have SLAs defined, and we can, through the communication and decision hub, we can get a full view of where we are in the process of decision. If things are blocked, then we can go and nudge why decisions are getting blocked, because as leaders, as architecture owners, the most important thing is to allow people to make decisions so that they can deliver the outcomes they need. This is a chart that I'm going to skip, like it is just to highlight again that not every decision is created equal. So there are leaders that, and based on the scope, there is a matrix for the DACI for different levels of decisioning. Last but not the least, so this is actually, now that we have capabilities, capability maturity, we have designs, we have decisions, how do we bring all this together in a way that we understand that overall capabilities, like posture, the health posture of entire architecture? We have extremely good operational metrics today, like, because those things are very tangible. You know your resiliency, you know your incidents. If you have outages, incidents, or your performance numbers, these are measurable metrics that we get. And we organize these metrics also by capabilities. Now, on the other side, we're starting to organize is how do we get visibility? So this does twofold. It gives us, again, the lens to how every capability that we're working on, how are they ultimately making us progress towards a platform. Now, this is an illustrative, this is not the be all end all, but starting to have a lens on that architecture matters and how architecture influences in future, like your operational posture or operational metrics. One thing coming home is like when we want this all, democratization, we want, shared responsibility, we want, extreme ownership, and we want autonomy. I think one of this picture really helps us. What are the kinds of things you need to have high alignment on versus what are the things you need high autonomy? Again, this is a picture I borrowed from Gregor Hope, like one of my favorite architects from the Architect Elevator, blog, that we need to think about what are those decisions, what are the things that we have to, thou shalt not do this or thou shalt do this. You have to have those alignment on that. Could be maybe some of the costly solutions or the something maybe like a very core that you do not want to have in different ways of doing. Those are your fixed standards. So we have a notion of standards for fixed, flexible, and free. So fixed, as it says, so there is only one. Flexible means you have options, but then you need guidelines on when to use. Like you could have, NoSQL databases, maybe I can have three choices, but I need to know when to use what. Civil, and then autonomy. And this is where the variable, maybe where we need more autonomy. Maybe that's where it goes, like how do you still innovate? So standards help with also to do innovation. Standards is not just adding constraining. It is not meant for constraining, but reducing friction, enabling like what decisions you don't need to worry about, but focus on what matters, where you need to have variability. So we use this, if we can use this as a capability grid, kind of a 2x2, then it helps you to drive those decision filters, like how to think of which capabilities, where you want more autonomy versus where you need alignment, and what kind of frameworking tooling patterns you need to have that. Now, as we have progressing, right, as the company is evolving, our architecture practice has been also maturing. So we started with, when you talk about the technology strategy or enterprise architecture framework is that capability map, we started with a very centralized way of defining those, because it's important that why and the what we call capability, who is accountable, because that's the one you are delivering to the business strategy. So we had a very wide cloud services to define this. As we have matured, and we have other capabilities to groom, which are not yet matured, we are slowly talking about moving into more federated models so that we can scale. So we are bringing in those domain architects, where the senior level, fellows within the domains, to take some ownership of, with the guardrails and the modeling guidelines that we have, but then still we have trust but verify with, my, throat to be choked, to make sure that there is data consistency within those capabilities, right? So again, this is something model, and the model is for scale. You can see the single point of, choking point versus how you can, scale by creating that community who, with your guidelines, can make those decisions and create those capabilities. Similarly, for architecture design, how architects, maybe in the central team, to moving into more on architects embedded in a BU, or maybe in the Scrum team, some of the engineers are playing the role of architects, right? So this is a progression from moving from, again, centralized to a more democratization, or creating that architects community. I think this is something to think about. I think Spotify has their way of squads and teams and tribes to enable this architecture democratization. But what is important is having the visibility on when we need to bounce back, when things start to as technologies, we all know things get monoliths or becomes like legacy that becomes brittle, and then you need to come back and look at what we need to do. And maybe there is some aspect you need to still bring back to the centralized, because that needs attention, right? And this is how we are also operating. But fundamentally, in order to operate this in well, is we need those design patterns, frameworks, guardrails, and having that visibility across so that we can see how things are happening, having a pulse on the technology components that you are shipping right now. So that's basically what I had to share today. So with the capability management, solution architecture, decisioning, and the architecture metrics, how we can think about we are accelerating and helping the organization to move. But it's very important, we cannot, central small EA team cannot do. So together with the architects across the company, we can do a lot much more. So what are our key takeaways? Starting with capability map, meaning having a common vocabulary, taxonomy, visibility, and transparency. Options, trade-offs, reduce friction, give people choices, but also give those guardrails when to use. And let people, having that extreme ownership and accountability, organizing around the architecture is a fantastic way of really driving ownership and accountability and still being able to flourish and, kind of innovate across the company. So that's it for it today. And I'll leave you with this note that we architects, not just we architects, I think any resources today or development engineering is very, we got to be really careful about what to focus. We have to be intentional about the work we do. Otherwise, we'll not do anything well. So figuring out the priorities, figuring out how that connects to the customer benefit, figuring that out to what benefit outcome does it deliver to the company goal is extremely crucial for the success of enterprise architecture and the company. So with that, thank you so much for, for attending my session. Please, ask any questions, find me on LinkedIn, and I look forward to staying connected. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.